There, so today we have another video, and this is an interesting one. I have a bottle of North Coast Old Rasputin Imperial Stout, and we're going to play some games here, and we're going to blend a little bit of Eagle Rare 10 into that. So let's start off with whiskey. What's the inspiration of this? I mean, it sort of makes sense. It's Russian Imperial Stout with bourbon. I mean, you've had your bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout, so we're going to try a little bit of this. And if anything, the bourbon barrels are usually not as special as 10-year-old Eagle Rare barrels, and that's what this whiskey is. So let's dig into it. We're going to go pretty light. There's nothing scientific about this. This is just playing around. This is the kind of experimentation that I think a lot of people end up missing. I end up having not done as much as I should. I've done videos about blending two separate beers together. You can blend whiskeys and scotches together, especially scotches. You can do a wonderful world of that. And so recently getting into whiskey, I thought it'd be a perfect way to marry, one of my favorite things, beer, and with some whiskey that I recently acquired. So that seems like this sort of makes some sense to me. If you want a guess on how many ounces that was, it's probably like 4 ounces to half an ounce of whiskey, something like that. Nothing perfect. Again, you can always adjust. That's the whole point of this. You can put in more of this, put in more of that. Let's get the aroma on this one. Oh, man. That's awesome. I'm getting tons of the Eagle Rare here. I'm getting cherry flavor, tons of wood, sweet wood. Yeah. It's very fruit forward, though. All those inviting like cherry pie notes, along with just like some oak chips thrown in there. And then the underlying dark fruit of this Imperial Stout is in there. The roast is actually taken away by how aggressive that oak wood is. Cheers. Oh, that is good. I mean, some would say, you might be wasting some amount of these two products. You should just enjoy them individually. I don't know. I think that there's definitely some amount of experimentation that you should definitely do when you're trying these things. And there's obviously an intent behind it. We've had bourbon barrel aged Imperial Stout. So this is a great way, I'd imagine, for home brewers, even professional brewers, to sort of get a sense of what they're doing when they're throwing Imperial Stout into a barrel. And so you actually get a taste of the two products sort of melding together. For sure, this is not a barrel aged Imperial Stout. You can taste it, and granted, I've had Imperial Stouts, barrel-aged Imperial Stouts that sort of taste like this, and that's the note that I call when I say it tastes like Imperial Stout with bourbon inside. And this is what it tastes like. The two don't really marry together. I imagine there's some imbalance of having too much whiskey because they're only sitting it in the barrel for a certain amount of time. There's not enough maturation, not enough contact on the wood. Very complicated factors when you're barrel aging a beer, especially in a barrel that has already held a previous spirit. But this one is very lovely. You're gonna have to be a bourbon or whiskey connoisseur, or someone that enjoys it, to really enjoy this, because it is so forward. The beer really takes a huge backseat, or some amount of backseat to the Eagle Rare. The Eagle Rare is aggressive. It has that fruity quality. It will burn on the palate a little bit because we are bumping up the ABV. But not only that, the flavor of that whiskey and alcohol is different from the alcohol of a beer. The beer really will accentuate roast and all those beautiful flavors. This one actually has that, oh shoot, I'm drinking some whiskey, and your tongue sort of feels it. The nutty, walnutty, waxy kind of thing that Eagle Rare has definitely pops up. And then as you wait more, about halfway or 2/3 into your palate, you get that roast coming through, balancing out those notes of oak and fruit that come through from the Eagle Rare. It's fun. It's actually an interesting experience because it's something that you're quite not sure what you're tasting. You could maybe imagine some kind of cocktail because it has that kind of alcohol flavor to it, so it has that higher ABV on your palate. But then it is reasonably bitter from the roast of the malt. So then you're maybe thinking of something that is a cocktail that has Amaro in it, or bitter in it. So that's something that's balancing it out. It's very interesting, and it's very fun. It's wonderfully complex. And the other benefit that you get with cocktails, generally, unless you're making something with egg or egg whites, you're not going to have carbonation, that fizzy, and that sensation of foam. So now not only are you drinking a product that has whiskey in it, but it also has carbonation to it. So it's very interesting. I think the two products really meld very well. Do I prefer straight up well-made professional bourbon barrel aged imperial stouts? For sure, I definitely do. But I think this is really fun. The flavors really meld well together. And if anything, I can add just a little bit more beer. And I'm curious what that tastes like, because generally when the beer maker gets the barrels, they really shouldn't have any whiskey left in them. They might be a little wet and they might have, just a tad bit really, but it would be the whiskey that's left in the staves of the barrel, not really just like bourbon in the barrel, because then the bourbon producer would be just giving away free bourbon, which they probably don't want to be doing. So what you're getting when your bourbon barrel aged imperial stout is really the amount of contact time, and also with the seasons as the beer seeps into the wood and seeps out of the wood, it's sort of extracting flavor compounds not only from the wood, but also simply extracting some amount of whiskey out of that wood into the product of the final beer. Yeah, surely not as complex. You don't get those beautiful vanilla tones. You don't get that beautiful smoothness and all those beautiful desserty flavors that you get from a bourbon barrel aged imperial stout properly made. But this is still very fun. And you're actually getting a little closer to that as I add a little bit more imperial stout, because the base beer is actually finally showing its head a little bit more. Yeah, and it's fun because now I'm thinking about it, like this really like bumps up the Old Rasputin to another level, because now I'm getting those beautiful complexity of Eagle Rare, just filling in those little crevices of flavor that that Old Rasputin could have. And it's like boom, 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 boom. It's fireworks in your mouth of the complexity of the roast and the coffee and the imperial stout, and again that carbonation driving in there, and then just that intense amount of flavor that Eagle Rare has. So really fun stuff. I hope you try it. Post in the comments below about more ideas. I know I have a lot of ideas that I need to do for you guys, and this is a fun one. So until next time, experiment, try some stuff like this. Until next time, later. Cheers.